What if your past mistakes could become your greatest teachers? It's a question that might feel counterintuitive at first. After all, mistakes often leave us with regret, shame, or even a sense of failure. But what if I told you that those very missteps hold the key to growth, resilience, and even peace of mind? Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacles we face, including our own errors, can be transformed into opportunities for learning and strength. This is the heart of Stoicism, not avoiding mistakes, but embracing them as part of the human experience. It's about shifting your perspective from regret to acceptance, from dwelling on the past to living fully in the present. Today, we're going to explore how Stoic principles like acceptance, resilience, and presence can help you release the weight of past mistakes. We'll dive into actionable practices that you can start using right now to reframe your relationship with your past and move forward with clarity and purpose. So, if you've ever felt held back by something you wish you could undo, or if you're ready to turn those moments into stepping stones for growth, this is for you. Let's begin. Acceptance isn't about condoning mistakes, it's about freeing yourself from their grip. Think about it. When you resist or deny what's already happened, you're essentially fighting a battle you can't win. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that acceptance is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional freedom. It's not about saying, "This was okay," but rather, "This happened and I can't change it. What I can change is how I respond to it." Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "Some things are within our control and some things are not." What he's pointing to is the power of focusing on what's truly in your hands, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, rather than wasting energy on what's already done. Acceptance, in this sense, is a form of empowerment. It's saying, "I can't rewrite the past, but I can rewrite how it affects me moving forward." Take, for example, someone who's faced a major career setback. Maybe they lost a job or missed out on a promotion. At first, it's natural to feel anger, frustration, or even shame. But what happens when they shift their mindset? Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, they accept the situation as it is. They ask themselves, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow?" That's where the real transformation begins. Acceptance doesn't erase the mistake, but it does open the door to resilience and growth. So here's a question to reflect on. What mistake have you struggled to accept, and how might embracing acceptance change your perspective? It's not about forgetting or excusing what happened. It's about releasing its hold on you so you can move forward with clarity and purpose. The Stoics believed that peace comes from knowing the difference between what we can and cannot change. This idea, often called the dichotomy of control, is one of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers for letting go of past mistakes. At its core, it's about recognizing that some things are simply beyond our influence, like what's already happened, while others, like our reactions and choices, are entirely within our power. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it bluntly: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." What he meant is that much of our pain comes from replaying past events in our minds, wishing we could change them. But here's the truth: the past is fixed. It's outside our control, and yet so many of us spend countless hours dwelling on it, as if our regret could somehow rewrite history. The Stoics would argue that this is not only futile but also exhausting. Take the story of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher. After a devastating military defeat, he could have spent years lamenting his losses, blaming himself, or wishing things had gone differently. Instead, he chose to focus on what he could control: his response. He rebuilt his life, learned from the experience, and continued to live with integrity and purpose. Kato's story reminds us that while we can't change the past, we can always choose how we move forward. So, how does this apply to you? Think about a mistake you've been holding on to, something you wish you could undo or fix. Now ask yourself, is this something within your control? If the answer is no, then it's time to shift your focus. Instead of trying to control what's already happened, redirect your energy toward what you can influence, your mindset, your actions, and your growth. Here's a question to reflect on. What past mistake have you been trying to control, and how can you shift your focus to the present? Remember, the goal isn't to erase the past, but to stop letting it dictate your future. By embracing the dichotomy of control, you can release regret and step into a more empowered, intentional way of living. Amor fati, or love of fate, is the Stoic art of turning setbacks into stepping stones. It's about more than just accepting what happens, it's about embracing it, even when it feels painful or unfair. The Stoics believed that every event, no matter how challenging, has a purpose in shaping who we are. By learning to love our fate, we transform mistakes into opportunities for growth and obstacles into pathways for resilience. Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic philosophy, once wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati," that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. What he's saying is that true strength comes from fully embracing your life exactly as it is. This doesn't mean you have to like every moment or pretend that mistakes don't hurt. It means recognizing that even the hardest experiences contribute to your story, your strength, and your ability to move forward. Consider the story of a modern entrepreneur who faced a major business failure early in their career. Instead of letting that failure define them, they chose to see it as a necessary step in their journey. They analyzed what went wrong, learned from their mistakes, and used that knowledge to build a more successful venture. In hindsight, they realized that failure wasn't the end. It was the foundation for their future success. This is amor fati in action, loving your fate, even when it doesn't go as planned, because you trust that it's leading you somewhere meaningful. So, how can you apply this to your own life? Think about a past mistake or setback that still weighs on you. Instead of seeing it as a failure, try reframing it as a necessary part of your growth. Ask yourself, what did this experience teach me? How did it make me stronger or wiser? By shifting your perspective, you can begin to see even the toughest moments as essential pieces of your journey. Amor fati isn't about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding meaning in the mess and trusting that every twist and turn is shaping you into the person you're meant to become. When you learn to love your fate, you stop fighting against life and start flowing with it. And that's where true freedom begins. Stoicism teaches us to observe our thoughts without being ruled by them. This practice, known as cognitive detachment, is about creating a mental space where you can see your mistakes and the emotions tied to them from a distance. It's not about suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist. Instead, it's about recognizing that your thoughts and emotions are not you. They're simply passing events like clouds drifting across the sky. Marcus Aurelius captured this idea beautifully when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." What he's pointing to is the ability to step back and observe your thoughts without letting them consume you. When you replay a past mistake in your mind, it's easy to get caught up in a cycle of regret or self-criticism. But cognitive detachment allows you to break that cycle. It helps you see the situation for what it is, rather than through the lens of emotion. Imagine someone who keeps replaying a regretful conversation in their head. They might think, if only I had said this instead, or why did I let myself get so upset? These thoughts can spiral into a narrative that feels inescapable. But with cognitive detachment, they can pause and ask, is this thought helping me? Is it true, or is it just a story I'm telling myself? By creating that mental distance, they can begin to let go of the emotional weight tied to the memory. This practice isn't about dismissing the importance of reflection. It's about shifting from a place of emotional entanglement to one of clarity and objectivity. When you detach from the narrative, you create room for growth. You can ask yourself, what can I learn from this, rather than, why did this happen to me? So, here's a question to reflect on. What story have you been telling yourself about a past mistake, and how can you detach from it? Remember, the goal isn't to erase the memory, but to see it clearly without letting it define you. When you practice cognitive detachment, you reclaim your power to choose how your past shapes your present and your future. Stoics saw resilience as the muscle that grows stronger with every challenge. It's not about avoiding mistakes or sidestepping difficulties. It's about facing them head-on and emerging stronger on the other side. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, isn't something you're born with. It's something you cultivate through experience, especially through the moments when things don't go as planned. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery and exile, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that resilience isn't about controlling external events. It's about mastering our internal response. Every mistake, every failure, every setback is an opportunity to practice this mastery. When we stumble, we're not just falling, we're building the strength to rise again. Consider the story of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. Before he became a philosopher, Zeno was a wealthy merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck. Instead of letting this disaster define him, he used it as a turning point. He turned to philosophy, dedicating his life to understanding how to live with virtue and resilience. Zeno's story shows us that even the most devastating mistakes can become the foundation for something greater. So, how does this apply to your life? Think about a time when you faced a significant challenge or made a mistake that felt insurmountable. At the time, it might have seemed like the end of the world, but looking back, can you see how it shaped you? Maybe it taught you patience or humility or the importance of perseverance. These are the gifts of resilience, lessons that only come through experience. Here's a question to reflect on. How has a past mistake made you stronger, even if it didn't feel like it at the time? Resilience isn't about pretending everything is easy. It's about finding the strength to keep going, even when it's hard. And every time you do, you're not just overcoming a challenge, you're building the resilience to face whatever comes next. By embracing mistakes as opportunities to grow, you're not just surviving life's challenges, you're thriving through them. And that's the true power of resilience. It transforms adversity into strength, one step at a time. The Stoics believed that the present moment is the only place where life truly happens. It's a simple yet profound idea. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, and all we truly have is the here and now. When we allow our minds to dwell on past mistakes, we're essentially living in a place that no longer exists. And in doing so, we miss out on the richness of the present moment, the only time where we can actually take action, make choices, and create change. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: life is long if you know how to use it. What he's pointing to is the importance of focusing on what's in front of us, rather than wasting precious time and energy on what's already behind us. The past, no matter how much we replay it, can't be altered. But the present, that's where our power lies. It's where we can choose to let go of regret, to learn from our experiences, and to move forward with intention. Take, for example, someone who struggled with a past relationship that ended badly. They might spend hours replaying conversations, wondering what they could have done differently, or feeling weighed down by guilt or resentment. But what happens when they shift their focus to the present? Instead of dwelling on what's already happened, they start to notice the opportunities around them, new connections, personal growth, and the chance to build a life that aligns with their values. This shift doesn't erase the past, but it does free them from its grip. Mindfulness, a practice rooted in being fully present, is a modern tool that aligns beautifully with this Stoic principle. By training ourselves to focus on the here and now, whether through meditation, deep breathing, or simply paying attention to our surroundings, we create a mental space where past regrets lose their power. It's not about ignoring the past, but about choosing not to let it dominate our thoughts. So, here's a question to reflect on. What past mistake keeps pulling you back, and how can you anchor yourself in the present? Maybe it's a moment of regret, a missed opportunity, or a decision you wish you could undo. Whatever it is, remember that the present moment is your chance to reclaim your focus and your power. By choosing to live fully in the now, you're not just letting go of the past, you're opening yourself up to a life of clarity, purpose, and peace. Self-compassion isn't weakness, it's the Stoic art of balancing accountability with kindness. Too often, when we make mistakes, we fall into the trap of harsh self-criticism, as if punishing ourselves will somehow make things right. But Stoicism teaches us a different approach, one that combines responsibility with understanding. It's about holding ourselves accountable without letting guilt or shame consume us. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, offered a powerful reminder: be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. At first glance, this might seem like a call for relentless self-discipline, but when you look closer, it's also an invitation to treat yourself with the same patience and care you'd extend to someone you love. Imagine a friend coming to you after making a mistake. Would you berate them, or would you offer support and encouragement? The Stoics believed we should extend that same kindness to ourselves. Take, for example, someone who's made a financial mistake. Maybe they overspent, invested poorly, or missed an important payment. It's easy to spiral into self-blame, replaying the decision over and over in your mind. But what happens when you approach the situation with self-compassion? Instead of dwelling on the error, you acknowledge it, learn from it, and take steps to move forward. This doesn't mean ignoring the consequences or shirking responsibility. It means recognizing that mistakes are part of being human, and that growth comes from understanding, not self-punishment. Self-compassion also helps us break free from the cycle of regret. When we're kind to ourselves, we create space to reflect on what went wrong without being overwhelmed by negative emotions. This clarity allows us to make better choices in the future rather than staying stuck in the past. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you show yourself the same compassion you'd offer a friend who made a mistake? It might mean speaking to yourself with gentler words, or reminding yourself that everyone stumbles sometimes. By practicing self-compassion, you're not excusing your mistakes. You're giving yourself the grace to learn from them and grow. This Stoic approach to self-compassion isn't about letting yourself off the hook. It's about creating a healthier, more constructive relationship with your past. When you treat yourself with kindness, you're not just healing old wounds, you're building the resilience to face whatever comes next, and that's where true strength lies. Stoics remind us that everything, including our mistakes, is fleeting. This idea, known as impermanence, is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. It teaches us that nothing lasts forever, not our successes, not our failures, and certainly not the regrets we carry. By embracing this truth, we can begin to see our past mistakes not as permanent stains, but as temporary moments in the grander flow of life. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who faced immense personal hardship, once said, "Remember that you are an actor in a play, and the playwright chooses the length of the performance." What he's pointing to is the transient nature of existence. Just as a play has its beginning, middle, and end, so too do our lives and every moment within them. When we internalize this truth, the weight of past regrets begins to lift. We start to see our mistakes not as defining moments, but as fleeting experiences that shape us without confining us. Consider the story of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite his immense power and responsibility, he faced countless challenges and setbacks throughout his reign. Yet, he often reflected on the impermanence of life in his private writings, reminding himself that even the most significant events would eventually fade into memory. This perspective allowed him to lead with clarity and purpose, unburdened by the weight of past errors. So, how can you apply this wisdom to your own life? Think about a mistake you've been holding onto, something that feels like it defines you or holds you back. Now, imagine looking at that moment from a distance, as if it were a scene in a play. Does it still carry the same weight, or does the idea of impermanence help you see it as just one part of a much larger story? Here's a question to reflect on. How does the idea of impermanence change how you view your past mistakes? When you recognize that even the most painful moments are temporary, you free yourself from their grip. You begin to see life as a series of experiences, each one teaching you something valuable, but none of them permanent enough to define you. By embracing the wisdom of impermanence, you're not dismissing the importance of your past. You're simply choosing not to let it dictate your future. And in doing so, you open yourself up to a life of greater freedom, resilience, and peace. Gratitude is the Stoic antidote to regret. While it might seem counterintuitive to feel thankful for the things that went wrong, the Stoics believed that gratitude has the power to transform how we see our past. Instead of focusing on what we've lost or what we wish we could change, gratitude shifts our attention to what we've gained, the lessons, the growth, and even the unexpected opportunities that arise from our mistakes. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote, "He who is brave is also grateful." What he meant is that true courage lies in finding the good, even in the midst of difficulty. Gratitude doesn't erase the pain of a mistake, but it does help us reframe it. It allows us to see that every experience, no matter how challenging, contributes to who we are and where we're headed. Take, for example, someone who's gone through a painful breakup. At first, it's easy to focus on the hurt, the disappointment, or the sense of failure. But over time, they might begin to notice the silver linings, the lessons they've learned about themselves, the resilience they've built, or even the new opportunities that have opened up as a result. By practicing gratitude, they're not denying the pain, they're simply choosing to see the bigger picture. This Stoic approach to gratitude isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that even the toughest experiences have value. When we cultivate gratitude, we're not just letting go of regret, we're actively choosing to focus on what's meaningful and positive in our lives. So here's a question to reflect on. What can you be grateful for, even in the wake of a past mistake? Maybe it's a lesson you've learned, a strength you've discovered, or a new path that's opened up as a result. By shifting your focus to gratitude, you're not just moving on from the past, you're finding the gifts it's left behind. Gratitude, in the Stoic sense, is a practice, a way of seeing the world that transforms regret into resilience. It's a reminder that even in the face of failure, there's always something to be thankful for. And when we embrace that mindset, we're not just healing our past, we're building a brighter, more intentional future. Stoics used journaling as a tool to reflect, learn, and let go. For them, writing wasn't just a way to record events, it was a practice of self-examination, a way to untangle thoughts, process emotions, and find clarity in the midst of life's chaos. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic practitioners, kept a personal journal known as Meditations, where he reflected on his thoughts, struggles, and lessons learned. He wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." What he's pointing to is the power of turning inward, of using writing as a tool to uncover wisdom and release what no longer serves us. Journaling works because it creates a space for honesty. When we write about our mistakes, we're forced to confront them head-on, without the filters we might use in conversation or even in our own thoughts. This process of putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard helps us see the situation more clearly. It allows us to identify patterns, recognize lessons, and ultimately let go of the emotional weight tied to the past. Take, for example, someone who's experienced a career setback. Maybe they were passed over for a promotion or made a costly error at work. At first, they might feel stuck in a cycle of self-doubt or frustration. But when they sit down to journal, something shifts. As they write, they begin to see the situation from a new perspective. They might realize that the mistake taught them a valuable lesson about preparation or communication. Or they might uncover a hidden strength like resilience or adaptability that they didn't know they had. By the end of the entry, they've not only processed the experience but also found a way to move forward with greater insight and purpose. So, how can you start using journaling as a tool for letting go? Begin by setting aside a few minutes each day to write freely about a past mistake that's been weighing on you. Don't worry about grammar or structure, just let your thoughts flow. Ask yourself questions like, what did I learn from this experience? Or how can I use this lesson to grow? Over time, you'll find that journaling helps you release the emotional grip of the past and step into a more intentional, empowered present. Here's a question to reflect on. What would you write in a journal entry about a past mistake you're ready to release? Whether it's a moment of regret, a missed opportunity, or a decision you wish you could undo, journaling gives you the chance to process it, learn from it, and ultimately let it go. And in doing so, you're not just clearing space in your mind, you're creating room for growth, clarity, and peace. Stoics saw humility as the foundation of growth. It's not about diminishing yourself or downplaying your worth. It's about recognizing that you, like everyone else, are a work in progress. Humility allows us to acknowledge our mistakes without being crushed by shame or ego. It's the quiet strength that says, I'm not perfect and that's okay. I can learn, I can grow, and I can move forward. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured immense hardship, once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of humility. When we approach life with the mindset that we have more to learn, we open ourselves to growth. Humility isn't about self-deprecation, it's about self-awareness. It's the ability to look at our mistakes honestly, without defensiveness or denial, and say, this is where I went wrong. What can I do better next time? Consider the story of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and Stoic who was known for his unwavering integrity. Despite his high status, Cato never let pride cloud his judgment. When he made mistakes, and he did, as all humans do, he owned them fully. He didn't try to shift blame or make excuses. Instead, he used those moments as opportunities to reflect, learn, and improve. Cato's humility wasn't a weakness, it was a source of strength. It allowed him to lead with authenticity and earn the respect of those around him. So, how can humility help you approach a past mistake with grace? Think about a time when you stumbled. Maybe you said something you regret, made a poor decision, or failed to meet a goal. Instead of letting shame or pride take over, try approaching that moment with humility. Acknowledge what happened, take responsibility, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? When you do, you're not just letting go of regret, you're building the foundation for growth. Humility reminds us that mistakes don't define us, they refine us. They're not signs of failure but opportunities to become better versions of ourselves. By embracing humility, you're not just accepting your imperfections, you're turning them into stepping stones for growth. And that's where true strength lies. Stoics teach us that perspective is the lens through which we interpret our lives. It's not the events themselves that shape us, but how we choose to see them. When we make a mistake, it's easy to view it as a failure. a mark against our character or abilities. But what if we could shift that perspective? What if, instead of seeing mistakes as setbacks, we saw them as stepping stones? This is the power of perspective, the ability to reframe our experiences in a way that empowers rather than diminishes us. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." What he's pointing to is the idea that our perception of an event often carries more weight than the event itself. A mistake might feel catastrophic in the moment, but when we step back and view it through a different lens, we often find that it's not as devastating as it seemed. In fact, it might even hold the seeds of growth and transformation. Take, for example, someone who's experienced a public failure. Maybe they gave a presentation that didn't go as planned, or they made a mistake at work that was noticed by others. At first, they might feel embarrassed, even ashamed. But what happens when they shift their perspective? Instead of seeing the failure as a reflection of their worth, they begin to see it as an opportunity to learn. They might realize that the experience taught them how to handle pressure or how to communicate more effectively under stress. By reframing the mistake as a lesson, they transform it from a source of pain into a source of strength. This Stoic approach to perspective isn't about ignoring the reality of a situation. It's about choosing to see it in a way that serves you. When we view mistakes as opportunities rather than failures, we open ourselves to growth, resilience, and even gratitude. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding meaning in the imperfect. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can you shift your perspective on a past mistake to see it as a lesson? Maybe it's a moment of regret, a missed opportunity, or a decision you wish you could undo. Whatever it is, try asking yourself, what did this experience teach me? How did it make me stronger or wiser? By changing the way you see the past, you change the way it shapes your future. Perspective is a choice, one that can turn even the most challenging moments into opportunities for growth. And when we embrace that choice, we're not just letting go of regret, we're stepping into a more empowered, intentional way of living. Stoics believe that letting go is a skill we can cultivate. It's not something that happens automatically or overnight. It's a deliberate, ongoing practice. Letting go isn't about forgetting or pretending the past didn't happen. It's about consciously choosing to release the emotional weight tied to our mistakes so we can move forward with clarity and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, offered a powerful insight. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What he's pointing to is the idea that while we can't change what's already happened, we can choose how we relate to it. Letting go is about reclaiming that power, about deciding that the past no longer gets to dictate your present or your future. Think about a parent who's been carrying guilt over a mistake they made with their child. Maybe they lost their temper or missed an important moment. At first, the guilt might feel overwhelming, like a heavy chain they can't shake. But what happens when they decide to let go? They don't erase the mistake or pretend it didn't happen. Instead, they acknowledge it, learn from it, and choose to focus on being present and intentional moving forward. This shift doesn't happen passively. It's an active choice, one that requires effort and practice. Letting go is like setting down a heavy bag you've been carrying for miles. At first, it might feel strange, almost uncomfortable to walk without that weight. But over time, you start to notice how much lighter and freer you feel. The key is to keep practicing, even when it's hard. Every time you choose to release a regret or a resentment, you're strengthening that skill, making it easier to let go the next time. So here's a question to reflect on. What past mistake are you ready to actively let go of? And what steps can you take to start that process? Maybe it's a moment of regret, a missed opportunity, or a decision you wish you could undo. Whatever it is, remember that letting go isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing not to let it hold you back. By taking small, intentional steps, you can begin to release what no longer serves you and step into a more empowered, intentional way of living. Letting go is a practice, not a one-time event. It's about making the choice again and again to focus on what you can control and release what you can't. And with each choice, you're not just freeing yourself from the past, you're creating space for growth, resilience, and peace. Stoics saw forgiveness as a path to inner peace. It's not about excusing harmful behavior or pretending that mistakes didn't happen. Instead, forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the emotional chains that keep you tied to the past. When you forgive, whether it's yourself or someone else, you're not saying, "What happened was okay." You're saying, "I'm choosing to let go of the pain so I can move forward." Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. What he's pointing to is the liberating power of forgiveness. When we hold onto resentment or guilt, we're the ones who suffer. We carry that weight, replaying the past in our minds, while the person or situation we're upset with often moves on unaffected. Forgiveness, then, isn't about the other person, it's about reclaiming your own peace of mind. Take the story of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite facing betrayal and political intrigue throughout his reign, he chose to focus on forgiveness rather than vengeance. In his private writings, he reflected on the importance of understanding others' flaws and letting go of anger. He didn't do this because it was easy. He did it because he knew that holding onto resentment would only poison his own mind. By practicing forgiveness, he was able to lead with clarity and compassion, even in the face of adversity. So, how can you apply this to your own life? Think about a past mistake, whether it's something you did or something someone did to you, that still weighs on you. What would it feel like to release that burden? Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or condoning what happened. It means choosing to stop letting it control your emotions and your future. Here's a question to reflect on. Who or what do you need to forgive to release a past mistake? It might be yourself, someone else, or even a situation that feels unfair. Whatever it is, remember that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's not about erasing the past, it's about creating space for peace, growth, and a brighter future. When you embrace forgiveness, you're not just letting go of the past, you're stepping into a more empowered, intentional way of living, and that's where true freedom begins. Stoics believed that action is the antidote to regret. It's a simple yet profound idea. When we focus on what we can do now, we stop being prisoners of what we wish we had done differently. Regret, after all, thrives in the past, a place we can't change, but action lives in the present, where we have the power to shape our lives and create something meaningful. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery and exile, once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." What he's pointing to is the transformative power of purposeful action. It's not enough to simply reflect on our mistakes or wish things had gone differently. True growth comes from taking steps, no matter how small, to move forward. When we act, we're not just leaving the past behind, we're building a bridge to a better future. Consider someone who's haunted by a missed opportunity. Maybe they didn't pursue a dream job or let a relationship slip away. At first, they might feel stuck, replaying the what-ifs in their mind. But what happens when they decide to take action? Instead of dwelling on what they didn't do, they start a new project, reach out to someone they admire, or take a class to build new skills. By channeling their regret into action, they're not just moving forward, they're creating something positive from what once felt like a loss. This Stoic approach to action isn't about rushing into things or trying to fix everything at once. It's about taking intentional, meaningful steps that align with your values and goals. Even the smallest actions like writing a letter, starting a journal, or setting a daily intention can shift your focus from what's behind you to what's ahead. So here's a question to reflect on. What action can you take today to move beyond a past mistake? It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing. It could be as simple as reaching out to someone you've been avoiding, starting a new habit, or setting a goal that excites you. The key is to start, because every step you take is a step away from regret and toward a more intentional, empowered life. Action, in the Stoic sense, is more than just doing. It's about reclaiming your power to shape your present and your future. When you focus on what you can do today, you're not just letting go of the past, you're building a life that reflects who you are and who you want to become. And that's where true freedom begins. Stoics practiced mindfulness to anchor themselves in the here and now. This ancient practice, often associated with modern meditation, is about more than just relaxation. It's a way of training the mind to focus on the present moment. For the Stoics, mindfulness was a tool to prevent the mind from wandering into the past, where regrets and mistakes can easily consume us. By staying grounded in the present, we create a mental space where we can observe our thoughts without being ruled by them. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote, "Do not disturb yourself by picturing your life as a whole. Do not assemble in your mind the many and varied troubles which have come to you in the past and will come again in the future, but ask yourself with regard to every present difficulty, what is there in this that is unbearable and beyond endurance?" What he's pointing to is the power of presence. When we focus on what's happening right now, we stop giving energy to what's already happened. The past, after all, is unchangeable, but the present is where we can take action, make choices, and create change. Consider someone who's been carrying anxiety about a past mistake. Maybe they said something hurtful in a moment of anger, or made a poor decision that affected others. At first, the weight of that mistake might feel overwhelming, pulling them back into a cycle of regret and self-criticism. But when they practice mindfulness, something shifts. By focusing on their breath, the sensations in their body, or the sounds around them, they create a mental distance from those thoughts. They begin to see the mistake not as a defining moment, but as something that happened, and something they can learn from. Mindfulness doesn't erase the past, but it does help us stop reliving it. It's like stepping out of a storm and into a calm space where we can see clearly. When we're present, we're not just letting go of regret, we're reclaiming our ability to respond to life with intention and clarity. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can mindfulness help you stay present and release a past mistake? Maybe it's a moment of regret, a missed opportunity, or a decision you wish you could undo. Whatever it is, try bringing your attention to the present moment, whether through deep breathing, a mindful walk, or simply noticing the details around you. By anchoring yourself in the here and now, you're not just letting go of the past, you're opening yourself up to a life of greater peace, purpose, and possibility. Mindfulness, in the Stoic sense, is more than a practice, it's a way of living. It's about choosing to focus on what's real and immediate, rather than being pulled into the shadows of what's already gone. And when we embrace that choice, we're not just freeing ourselves from regret, we're stepping into a more intentional, empowered way of being. Stoics saw courage as the strength to confront our imperfections. It's not the kind of courage that involves grand gestures or heroic feats. It's the quiet, steady bravery to look at ourselves honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. Courage, in the Stoic sense, is about taking responsibility for our mistakes without flinching, without hiding, and without letting shame or fear hold us back. It's the willingness to say, "I messed up and I'm ready to learn from it." Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote, "It takes a brave soul to look in the mirror and see the truth." What he's pointing to is the courage of self-examination. It's easy to blame others, make excuses, or bury our mistakes under layers of denial. But true growth begins when we face our errors head-on, not as failures, but as opportunities to become better. This kind of courage isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Take the story of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. Before he became a philosopher, Zeno was a wealthy merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck. Instead of letting this disaster define him, he chose to confront it with courage. He didn't hide from his loss or pretend it didn't happen. Instead, he used it as a turning point, dedicating his life to understanding how to live with virtue and resilience. Zeno's courage wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about facing it, learning from it, and using it to build something meaningful. So, how can you apply this kind of courage to your own life? Think about a past mistake you've been avoiding, something that feels too painful or embarrassing to confront. Maybe it's a decision you regret, a relationship you mishandled, or a goal you didn't pursue. What would it look like to face that mistake with courage? Not to dwell on it or punish yourself, but to acknowledge it, learn from it, and take steps to move forward. Here's a question to reflect on. What past mistake requires courage to face, and how can you approach it bravely? It might mean having a difficult conversation, making amends, or simply forgiving yourself. Whatever it is, remember that courage isn't about erasing the past, it's about reclaiming your power to shape the future. When we embrace courage, we're not just letting go of regret, we're stepping into a more authentic, intentional way of living. And that's where true growth begins. Stoics believe that community is a mirror for growth. It's not just about surrounding yourself with people. It's about finding those who reflect your values, challenge your thinking, and support your journey. When we share our struggles with others, we gain something invaluable: perspective. Our mistakes, when kept hidden, can feel like insurmountable mountains. But when we bring them into the light, they often shrink to the size of stepping stones. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery and exile, once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." What he's pointing to is the power of shared wisdom. When we open up to others, we're not just venting or seeking comfort, we're inviting new insights, fresh perspectives, and the kind of understanding that can only come from someone who's walked a similar path. Take, for example, someone who's been carrying the weight of a past mistake. Maybe they betrayed a friend's trust or made a poor financial decision that affected their family. At first, they might feel isolated, as if no one could possibly understand their guilt or regret. But when they join a support group or confide in a trusted friend, something shifts. They hear stories of others who have faced similar challenges, and suddenly they don't feel so alone. They begin to see their mistake not as a unique failure, but as a shared human experience. This connection doesn't erase the past, but it does make it easier to process and release. So, here's a question to reflect on. Who in your life can help you process and release a past mistake? It might be a close friend, a family member, or even a mentor who's been through similar struggles. Whoever it is, remember that opening up isn't a sign of weakness, it's a step toward healing and growth. Community, in the Stoic sense, is more than just a safety net, it's a catalyst for transformation. When we share our struggles, we're not just lightening our own load, we're creating space for connection, understanding, and the kind of growth that only happens when we're willing to be vulnerable. And in doing so, we're not just letting go of the past, we're building a stronger, more resilient future. Stoics used reflection as a tool for growth, not self-punishment. Unlike rumination, which keeps us stuck in a loop of regret, reflection is about stepping back to see the bigger picture. It's a deliberate practice of examining what happened, why it happened, and what we can take away from it. The goal isn't to dwell on the past, but to extract wisdom that can guide us forward. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, often emphasized the importance of daily reflection. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, Think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. And at night, reflect on what you've done, what you've learned, and how you've grown. This simple yet profound habit of morning and evening reflection helps us stay grounded, learn from our experiences, and approach each day with intention. Structured reflection turns mistakes into lessons. It's not about replaying the event over and over in your mind, but about asking the right questions. What went wrong? What could I have done differently? What did this teach me about myself or the situation? By approaching reflection with curiosity rather than judgment, we create space for growth instead of guilt. Take, for example, someone who led a team project that didn't meet expectations. At first, they might feel frustrated or even embarrassed. But when they sit down to reflect, they begin to see patterns. Maybe they underestimated the timeline, or perhaps communication broke down at a critical moment. Instead of dwelling on the failure, they use these insights to improve their approach for the next project. Reflection, in this sense, becomes a bridge between failure and growth. So, here's a question to consider. What can you learn from a past mistake through intentional reflection? It might be a moment of miscommunication, a missed opportunity, or a decision that didn't go as planned. Whatever it is, try setting aside a few minutes to reflect on it, not to relive the regret, but to uncover the lessons it holds. Reflection, when done with purpose, is more than just looking back. It's about moving forward with greater clarity and wisdom. By making it a regular practice, you're not just learning from your mistakes, you're building a foundation for a more intentional, resilient way of living. Stoics saw patience as the companion of progress. It's not about waiting passively or resigning ourselves to inaction. It's about understanding that growth, healing, and transformation take time. When we rush to fix past mistakes or demand immediate solutions, we often create more stress and frustration. Patience, on the other hand, allows us to move forward with grace, giving ourselves the space to learn, adapt, and grow at our own pace. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." What he's pointing to is the idea that some wounds, whether they're emotional, mental, or even spiritual, can't be rushed. They require time to mend, just as a broken bone needs weeks to heal. Patience, in this sense, isn't about doing nothing. It's about trusting the process and allowing life to unfold as it should. Consider the story of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Throughout his reign, he faced countless challenges, political betrayals, military defeats, and personal losses. Yet he approached each obstacle with patience, understanding that lasting solutions and personal growth couldn't be forced. He didn't rush to judgment or demand immediate answers. Instead, he took the time to reflect, learn, and act with intention. His patience wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a source of strength, allowing him to lead with wisdom and resilience. So, how can patience help you release the urgency to undo a past mistake? Think about a moment you've been replaying in your mind, something you wish you could change or fix right now. What would it feel like to let go of that pressure and trust that with time you'll find clarity and peace? Patience doesn't mean ignoring the past. It means giving yourself permission to heal and grow without rushing the process. Here's a question to reflect on. How can you practice patience as you work through a past mistake? Maybe it's by setting small, manageable goals instead of expecting instant transformation. Or perhaps it's by reminding yourself that growth is a journey, not a race. When you embrace patience, you're not just letting go of regret, you're creating space for lasting change and a deeper sense of peace. Patience in the Stoic sense is more than a virtue, it's a practice. It's about trusting that, even in the face of mistakes and setbacks, time and effort will lead you to where you need to be. And when you embrace that mindset, you're not just healing the past, you're building a stronger, more resilient future. Stoics believed that the power to choose is always in our hands. No matter what's happened in the past, every moment presents a new opportunity to decide how we move forward. This isn't just a comforting idea, it's a fundamental truth that Stoicism teaches us. While we can't change what's already happened, we can choose how we respond to it, and it's in those choices that we find our freedom. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who faced immense personal hardship, put it this way: no one is free who is not master of themselves. What he's pointing to is the idea that true freedom comes from taking ownership of our choices. It's not about controlling external events, it's about mastering our internal response. When we focus on what we can choose in the present, we stop being prisoners of the past. Think about someone who's experienced a major personal failure. Maybe they lost a job, ended a relationship, or made a costly mistake. At first, it's natural to feel stuck, replaying the event in your mind and wishing you could change it. But what happens when you shift your focus to the choices you have right now? Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you start asking, what can I do today to move forward? Maybe it's applying for a new job, reaching out to a friend for support, or simply choosing to approach the day with a positive mindset. These small, intentional choices add up, creating momentum that pulls you out of regret and into action. The beauty of this Stoic principle is that it's always available to us. No matter how heavy the past feels, we can always choose to take a step, no matter how small, toward a better future. It's not about erasing the mistake or pretending it didn't happen. It's about reclaiming your power to shape what comes next. So here's a question to reflect on. What choice can you make today to move beyond a past mistake? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as choosing to forgive yourself, setting a new goal, or taking a moment to appreciate the progress you've already made. Every choice, no matter how small, is a step toward freedom. And when you embrace that power, you're not just leaving the past behind, you're building a future that's rooted in intention, resilience, and hope. The power of choice is a reminder that, no matter what's happened, you're never stuck. You always have the ability to choose your next step, and in that choice lies the freedom to create a life that's not defined by your mistakes, but shaped by your courage to move forward. As we wrap up, let's revisit the heart of what we've explored today, the Stoic principles that can help us let go of past mistakes and embrace growth. Acceptance, resilience, and presence aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical tools that empower us to move forward with clarity and purpose. Acceptance reminds us that we can't change what's already happened, but we can choose how we respond. Resilience teaches us that every setback is an opportunity to grow stronger, and presence anchors us in the here and now, where we have the power to act, learn, and create. Mistakes, as we've seen, aren't failures, they're stepping stones. They're the moments that shape us, challenge us, and ultimately make us wiser. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's greatest voices, once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What he's pointing to is the transformative power of self-reflection. When we take the time to examine our mistakes, to learn from them, and to reframe them as opportunities, we're not just letting go of regret, we're coloring our souls with resilience, wisdom, and growth. So here's a question to carry with you. How can you apply these principles to your own life? Maybe it's by practicing acceptance the next time you stumble, or by cultivating resilience when things don't go as planned. Perhaps it's by anchoring yourself in the present moment, where you have the power to choose your next step. Whatever it looks like for you, remember that every mistake is a chance to grow, and every moment is an opportunity to live with intention. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How have you learned to let go of past mistakes? What Stoic principles have helped you along the way? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else on their journey. And if you're eager for more insights like these, don't forget to subscribe and join our community of seekers and learners. Together, we can explore the timeless wisdom of Stoicism and discover how it can help us live with greater clarity, purpose, and peace. Thank you for being here, and remember, the past doesn't define you, it prepares you. Keep moving forward, one step at a time.